I, after I got back in bed, following my last video, Jake's alarm went off. Jake turned it off. And then Roland's cell phone rang in Roland's room, and I could hear the sound of voice say, "Hey," or sound from Roland's room, which was obviously Roland, because Roland was in Roland's room alone at that time. So Roland got a cell phone call from somebody he knows, and he said, "Hey." I didn't hear anything else that Roland said into Roland's phone because I'm sitting here in my bed in Jacob's room, which is next to Jake's bed in Jacob's room where Jacob's sleeping. As soon as Rose said, "Hey," into a phone, then I immediately heard the vehicle downstairs start up and drive away. I have not made or received any phone calls today, and the last time I spoke to anybody was when I spoke to Roland last night about 8:45 p.m., asking him where he was, why he hadn't come to pick us up yet. It's because he was someplace far, far away. And it took him at least 30 minutes to get over to pick me and Jake up. But he had told me it would only be 2 minutes, so obviously that wasn't true. Then Roland, anyway, so Roland got a phone call, said, "Hey," and then a vehicle downstairs took off, which is the same thing that happened yesterday, the day before, pretty much Roland, it appears, is having some type of contact with the downstairs tenant or somebody by phone at the same time that a vehicle's taking off from downstairs. And it's happened in the past, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, and now it's about 6:30, 6:45 now. I do not consent to searches, surveillance, monitoring, or supervision. I have told Roland that repeatedly and even demanded a search warrant from him to the point that I have, blatantly told him, "Look, I can see what you're doing. You need, to tell me he's the cop behind this and what the name and badge number." I've done that abusively. I've done it very politely. I've told him I wanted a search warrant. I've told him to tell anybody that asks that I do not consent to searches, surveillance, or monitoring unless there is a search warrant issued. However, in order to monitor this apartment, you would need the consent of all tenants. And whether or not my name was on the lease, legally, I am considered to be a tenant because I pay half the rent and half the utilities. So my legal consent would also be required, and I've never given anybody any reason at all to assume that I consent to searches, surveillance, monitoring, or supervision, or that I waive my constitutional rights. I have never had any contact with the woman who lives downstairs. I do not ever receive phone calls from anyone asking me for consent to testify, monitor me and Jake, or engage in any type of surveillance or reporting about me and Jake. So, once again, I have never had any contact with the tenant who lives in 132 downstairs, or her guests, or Pat and Ronnie who live on the second floor next door, or Fred who lives on the ground floor next door. I haven't spoken to Shante who lives on the ground floor next door since I banned her from coming to this apartment in January 2014. And Jake and I never have any contact with anybody who visits this street, except maybe Freddie Thibodeau, maybe the landlord, very rarely. Jake and I have never invited a single person to this street or this property or this apartment. Obviously, if we didn't ever invite anybody to this street, then they wouldn't be anybody we would have invited to the property or this apartment, because that's on this street. So, how many ways can you say the same thing? There's no other way to say the things that I said. This is a blatantly falsified case. My son and I do not receive supervision from anyone but me, and nobody spends a dime on me and Jake but me. And I would never allow anybody else to make purchases for me and my son because I won't have the money to pay him back. Anytime anybody does something like that for me, I always pay back money if I ever have to borrow money from somebody, but that's very rare. And I don't really have any friends that would loan me money, so I've never given anybody permission to engage in financial transactions with money that's supposed to be for me and my son. Nobody makes purchases that they need to be reimbursed for and gives them the purchased items to me and Jake. There should not be anyone with any form of an expense account related to any type of activity involving me and my son Jacob. Nobody ever spends a dime on me and Jake, and there is no reason for anybody to be turning in expense accounts. And there's nobody who's ever gotten my permission ever to engage in any form of representation of me and my son. That includes in financial transactions, legal transactions, speaking for me and my son as our representative, or engaging in telephone calls with a detective or person with a badge to give consent to searches or monitoring. I've never waived my constitutional rights, and I've never been informed of any of the above activities that I just listed. So this is all being done behind my back because my son and I are being blackmailed. Notice that we live in poverty in this, we suffer from impoverishment. I'm capable of working. I have an excellent resume, and you will see that there are years and years of work experience on my resume, all of them virtually on teams of people in which I was usually recognized and became a leader. But certainly have no problems proving that I have a strong work ethic. I have a bachelor's degree. I've been fired from jobs and run out of public places like a pariah, and at this point that's what I am. I'm being blackmailed by somebody with a badge who is engaged in some form of a kickback scheme. It looks to me like paying expenses for informants who never spend a dime on me or my son and never interact with me and my son and don't know us. The only person Jake and I ever speak to on this street, which is East Boulevard Street, is our housemate Roland. My son and I do not ever interact with anybody else on this street. And we live at 139 East Boulevard Street, which is a second-floor apartment. This is Jake's bedroom and overlooks the backyard of an Air Force employee who wears Air Force clothes. So I'm guessing she's an airman or something. And she has two pit bulls she keeps in that backyard. There's a red-headed woman across the street that drives a little red, or a bigger red truck. She has a pit bull too, but it looks a lot like one of the pit bulls in that backyard over there. So that's what I think is going on here is blackmail. And I didn't work my whole life for my education to sit on my ass and line the pockets of some jackass with a badge and his dopehead street trash ex-convict lying snitches because they don't want to work for a living either. My son has aspirations to go to medical school, which will require him to go to college for 10 years after he graduates from high school, which can only be accomplished with true self-discipline and the hardest working work ethic that there is. If you don't believe me, ask a doctor. And if he doesn't go to med school, he wants to be an engineer. He wants to go to Johns Hopkins or to MIT. So he has a future, and it doesn't include slinging drugs, and it never has. And forcing him to live like this. So people who want to do nothing but drink and get drunk all day and do drugs all day and won't work for a living like Roland, well, they sit back and get paid, and looks to me like they're being wined and dined and those types of things. And I've never approved anybody engaging in any form of financial transaction for anyone. I don't pay bills for anybody. I don't buy things and give them away. Those are things that store clerks have accused me of, that were obviously engaged in falsifying purchases that somebody else was making, and we're trying to substantiate that. And I've been through that in public places too, like going to Wendy's or something, black people walking up to me and acting like they know me and looking at me, and that's happened to me in stores. Also, with people, very straight trash looking black people, just over and over again that's happened to me and Jake. And I'm talking to the point where these people will hang out in parking lots and cars waiting for the second that Jake and I come out of whatever building we're in to put a cell phone to their ear and drive to a store, never putting that cell phone down and walking to that store all the time, walking about with a phone to their ear and saying that I don't notify the police. Well, I mean, the stores are approving these activities. I've talked to the management of Walmart's. I've talked to the management of Berkshire's. I've talked to the management of other stores. It's a police officer that's saying that it's okay, and it doesn't matter what I say, saying that I appear not to care. What am I supposed to do if the store managers are letting this type of stuff go on? There's not a lot I can do, especially if the person doing it has a gun and a badge and is telling everybody that it's okay. I don't have a gun and a badge, and I don't have the way to persuade people that way. So, there's no way that I can stand up against somebody like that, and it's not a fair fight. So I don't pick on people that I can victimize easily and who can't fight back, and that's what this cop is doing to me and Jake. I don't know who that cop is. I have never been invited to testify or participate in any legal matter of proceeding or investigation that would involve me and my son, and I've never given anybody permission to speak to anyone that I know about me and my son, and nobody's ever notified me of any type of supervision or monitoring. Anybody who asserts that they're supervising me and my son is delusional. You cannot supervise somebody without interacting with them personally and speaking to them. I know that because I supervised children for 5 years as a substitute teacher. Other experience I have in the field of education includes 5 years of homeschool teaching and 1 year scoring alternate assessments in special education, judging the portfolios and work of students and teachers directly under school board supervision. I was promoted to supervisor in that job. So, yeah, I have 6 years of experience outside of the classroom as a substitute teacher at Caddo Parish Schools. 6 years doing work in the field of education in other settings. So, yeah, I'm not a teacher that is certified, but, yeah, I'm a school teacher. Not a certified teacher, but I think I got the proof, yeah. I've done the work of a teacher, and I've done it extremely well, whether or not I'm certified. So, just another day in hell. I've been awake since about 4:30. I woke up with the urge to pee, but didn't start to get up till 5:24 a.m., at which time, as soon as I started to get up, Roland coughed once in Roland's room. Then Jacob started to moan during his sleep, and I said, Jacob, you're moaning in your sleep, and he stopped moaning. So I think he was being awakened by the loud, obtrusive sound of Roland's fake coughs, which Roland admitted to me he was doing after I confronted him yet again. Asking Roland, why do you get up and go to the bathroom when I get up and go to the bathroom at night? Why do you, fake cough and make these weird sounds that you do? You sound like, one of the sounds he makes sounds like he's having an orgasm. He says, oh, that's just the way I yawn. But he said the reason that that he fake coughs is to let me know where he is. So if I get up to go pee during the night and Roland fake coughs, he's doing that to let me know where he is, which means he knows where I am because he only does it, like I said, he admitted to doing what I said he was doing. I mean, you can surveil people without electronics. You can surveil people without electronic means, and what he admitted to was monitoring when I get up in the middle of the night to go urinate. 2 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock, doesn't matter. Every single time it's the same thing. He did not do it last night, though. He did not get up and go. So I think there probably is some type of search warrant in progress, which I was not informed of. But I've got plenty of footage of it. When I used to have a webcam, I can prove it. I can show that he did that, and I've audio taped it too. So it's not just, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. It's just random, and you're associating a pattern that's not there. No, it's there. I've got him on audio admitting that he's doing it. So no, that's not the case. That'll be an assumption to make that assertion, to assume that what I'm saying is not true. It could be this, it could be that. Well, then that means if you don't believe me, then there's two possibilities. But if you don't want to believe me, why would you assume that the other possibility is the truth and what I'm saying is not? And if you do make that assumption, then you're demonstrating prejudice, which means you do not have investigative objectivity in your opinion, and your whole case should be thrown out for that reason anyway. But let's not get hung up on things like the truth and reality. I'm supposed to be the nut job here, remember? I don't wait for people to get up in the middle of the night to go pee just so I can cough one single time or jump up and run ahead to the bathroom ahead of them in the middle of the night, all hours, no matter if it's 2 a.m. or 5. I don't do that to people. I don't surveil people while they're sleeping. I don't surveil people in their homes. And I don't claim to be doing it just in case the child might be abused. We don't monitor children just in case they're going to be abused. If they are abused while we're monitoring them, that would make us an accessory to that abuse, because we have things like mandatory reporting, in which case anyone with a badge, a nurse, or teacher, people in positions of authority, are required to immediately report reasonable suspicion of the abuse of a child to the authorities, who report it to a judge who makes a determination whether or not there is reasonable suspicion and takes action immediately. Doesn't tell people sit back and monitor and listen. How are you going to stop a child from being abused if you leave them in an abusive situation? You can sit back and listen to it, but you're not there to prevent the child from being abused. So that would only make you an accessory. In other words, there is no justification for monitoring me and my son. The only person that spies on a child is the pedophile. Only pedophiles spy on children. This is nothing but an excuse for voyeurism and intrusion and stalking me and my son, and I believe that the cop doing it is probably a pedophile. It would appear to me that that's the case, and it's a voyeur, and is probably sexually satisfied by doing this to me and my son and monitoring us this way. Probably has a poster of Hannibal Lecter on his office wall, too. So, Double O Dumbfuck is what I call whoever that officer is, because that's the truth. If you don't believe me, call somebody who actually knows something about it. I've talked to enough cops to know. I was trained on mandatory reporting by the head of school counseling for Caddo Parish Schools when I was in college, to working on my teacher certification, which I didn't finish, but we don't have the luxury of sitting back and taking notes just in case. We don't do that because the child would still be in danger whether or not you're listening and audio monitoring that child, even if you're videotaping it. All you do is be sitting there watching the child be abused. When you believe that a child is at risk to be abused, they are in danger and considered to be in danger. It's called endangerment, and action has to be taken immediately to protect that child. So we don't sit back and monitor people just in case they might abuse their children. And most cops will tell you, detectives will tell you, they would not prefer to monitor the home of a suspected pedophile without a search warrant, because it would fuck up their case, and it would probably make them an accessory, and probably get the case thrown out of court for the very reasons that I've already specified. So this is nothing but a witch hunt and voyeurism and stalking and blackmail and very immature police work being conducted by people like Roland, who's a convicted ex-convict. He invited 2 teenage children into our living room when I was unaware of it, and I threw them out immediately because of that fact. And, in order for me to supervise children and be the other adult present in the home with children are here, I have to know that they're here. And Roland did not inform me that they were. So, he says he just brought them over here so they could look at the puppies, but he knows better than that. That's a lure that I watched a pedophile protection video with the school kids I used to go teach, and one of the things that pedophiles will do is use pets to lure kids away from their protective location where they're being supervised by adults. So he can tell me that, and it may have been true, but that's not something a police officer would hear a pedophile say and ever believe to be true, because they've already been to prison like Roland has, and inviting kids into their homes is the last thing they'd ever do. So that's the credibility we're dealing with here. Why would you be calling a convicted pedophile, ex-convict, and asking his consent to a search and believing a word that he has to say? He doesn't have any credibility, and you say he did his time and that's over with. No. He will be under suspicion the rest of his life. He's not supposed to go within 1,000 feet of a schoolyard, and he can be questioned at any time by the police without a search warrant or probable cause. That's because he was convicted of a terrible, terrible crime. He says he didn't do it. I don't believe that he's a pedophile, but that's the way most people would look at it. So it's asinine and ridiculous and ridiculously obtuse to even use somebody like that as a source or your go-to guy to get consent to supervise a child or monitor a child, especially since he himself is up all hours of the night surveilling me and Jacob with or without electronic equipment, and is preoccupied with informing me of where he is by coughing one single time. And doing fake yawns, which sound like orgasms. He says that's just the way he yawns, but if you check my surveillance, you'll see that he never yawned like that, ever, and that it is intentional, that he times those types of yawns. He'll be talking to me, and as soon as Jake and I hit the front door, he will immediately yawn like that, and it's not a yawn, it's fake. So all he's doing is making audio cues, I think probably for the purpose of falsifying audio monitoring. And it's always, if you check those sound cues on my audio, not his, you'll see that he does that when I go to the bathroom, when Jake and I are walking out the door, particular times, not just randomly. He'll do it once and then wait 30 minutes and do it again, 30 minutes apart, not 10, not 15, that type of thing. So here we have a convicted ex-convict pretending to be Perry Mason, James Bond, and he was also Special Forces Navy SEAL trained in the Vietnam War, too. So not somebody you want to piss off. He could snap my neck in 2 seconds, And I've, come to blows with him, asking him and demanding that he tell me what's going on here. He's not going to. He's enjoying the payoff, and he's enjoying the game that he's playing, and he enjoys watching me and Jake suffer and playing games the way he is. He's not a cop. He's an ex-convict, and they're treating him like he's an undercover police officer. He's not. The woman who lives downstairs, if she's a cop, I've never seen a badge on her. My neighbors aren't police officers. They're undercover police officers, and I've never seen a police officer on this property or on this street. That's conducting a type of, investigation that would